What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Badlands Backlogs, and welcome back to something special today. This is our first official review for Rift of the NecroDancer. Before we get started, I would like to say the code for Rift was provided by the team over at Brace Yourself Games, so thank you so much for giving us a chance and letting us have this opportunity to do some coverage for you. Rift of the NecroDancer is the third title in the NecroDancer series. You may remember Crypt of the NecroDancer, which came out some time ago, which was a top-down sort of dungeon crawler, very much old school Legend of Zelda style, but it was very rhythm-based. You moved on beat to the music, enemies moved on beat, you attacked on beat, and it became sort of a icon in the indie or achievement scene and was known for having an extremely high difficulty going for achievements and trophies. Trying to get 100% on that became a challenge in itself on YouTube, I remember. But that eventually was picked up by Nintendo, and you got Cadence of Hyrule, which was pretty much the same thing, same gameplay mechanic style, but with the Legend of Zelda coding, which was awesome for the team, I'm sure, being able to, hey, here's our first sort of outing, and now we're working with a Nintendo firsthand. Now we're on to the third title, which is just a full-on rhythm game. As you can see on screen, it is a very classical now track-based system, similar to a Guitar Hero, Rock Band, Fortnite Festival sort of vibe, with 3 button inputs. Your left, up, and right. You can switch the up or down, but instead of notes, you are attacking enemies. You have these slimes that are coming down. There's skeletons, there's bats, there's Valkyries, each one with their own sort of mechanic to work around, which we'll get into later. But that is really the gist. It reminds me more of an arcade type experience, something that would be seen alongside a DDR machine compared to a classical sort of console or PC experience. There is a story here that's very top level, but I don't think the team's really aiming for that to be the main feature. This very much feels like, hey, we're chasing main scores, we're chasing leaderboards, we're chasing difficulties. But with that, let's dive into Rift of the NecroDancer. Rift of the NecroDancer is essentially a sequel to Crypt. You don't really need to play the original games to understand what's going on. It kind of pieces that together for you for what little of a story mode this has. There's 5 chapters, 33 songs available at launch in the game, so you'll be working through those in the 5 chapters. Cadence, your titular character, and some other random characters throughout Crypt of the NecroDancer have been dropped into a real-life world city compared to their high fantasy like lifestyle they're used to with dungeons and fairies and magic and all that sort of thing going on. They're in the real world now with real world responsibilities. The original boss of Crypt of the NecroDancer is now working in a fast food restaurant, flipping burgers, making fries. There's another character who has dropped in and is the CEO of a children's television program. And it just really puts these characters on a weird, sort of fun, different take. We've seen that before where people are put in a different world, but the levels and kind of extremes they do it at here brought out a couple laughs in me, and I really appreciated it. The story is set up where you'll have a couple mostly text-based cutscenes, not even cutscenes essentially. It'll be 2 characters on screen discussing what's happening, choose to go to point A, solve problem B, what have you, and then you'll go into a song track after, maybe 2 in a row, then back to a dialogue thing. It's very cut and dry, very top level, as I said. It's a music game, it's a rhythm game. If you're looking for a deep, sort of heart-wrenching story, you're not gonna find that here, which, like I said, I think that works out in Rift's favor. It wants you to spend time playing the tracks and mastering the tracks out of the 4 difficulties they have available: easy, medium, hard, and impossible. Each one sort of changes the layout, obviously, but really ramps up the speed at which you're playing through these. So it wants you to have that repetitive nature as you're playing through. As I'm sure you've seen, instead of traditional music notes you're hitting, you're clearing away enemies that are pouring out through the rifts from your own home world, uh, taking care of them, sending them back, whatever it be. But the enemies interact with each other in such a unique way that it adds a whole new dynamic to what a rhythm-based game is. As you can see, watching the gameplay clips, slimes, for example, only take one hit to be destroyed, sometimes two, sometimes three, depending on color. There's armadillos that you need to hit multiple times in the same beat. There's bats that switch lanes after each hit, so they'll sometimes be coming down the middle track, switch over to the left, back to the middle. There's just so much going on that it almost becomes an issue at times where took a day break from the game, and when I came back, I had to look up the wiki to remember what I was doing, what enemies did what, how to take care of each one, and sort of how each one interacts with each other. You naturally start seeing the pattern throughout the song, obviously, of we have X amount of these coming followed by this. We have two of these followed by this. And it kind of is repetitive in that sense, but it still is a learning process and puts your mind on a whole other level of thinking because you're balancing the beat of the music, keeping the rhythm, listening to the song, trying to enjoy it, obviously, but still fighting just a horde of enemies. And honestly, at times, it felt like I was playing a bullet hell with how much was happening and coming down screen at me at once. The game also does work on a health system, so there is 10 hearts you have for missing enemies that you can refill with food scattered along certain tracks. There is also an equivalent to a star power meter, where if you hit certain sections, you gain a section of invulnerability you can activate at any time to help you through harder sections. In between story missions too, the game will throw in a couple different mini games that are obviously still rhythm based, but it kind of throws in sort of a relaxing effort or a change of pace to what you're used to. Instead of the frantic frantic waves attacking you, you are doing a yoga class, staying more mellowed out, toned down, deep breaths, rhythm stuff, and they really break up the pace at which you're going through the story. Again, only 5 chapters, so it's not a huge endeavor, but it was still nice seeing a sort of break given to you throughout. There's also boss battles that cap off the chapter, and I feel could have been done in a different way personally. Um,
And a 2 and a 1, let's go! Downward dog.
they work very similar to the mini games where you are dodging attacks that come up in purple and then doing counterattacks that come up in yellow. But it honestly is very mellow and chill. There was in my playthrough on medium, there was a couple songs in chapter 3 and 4 where I had to drop the difficulty down because I physically could not make it through. But getting to the boss fights for those chapters, I could have done them on hard first go around. It's a huge discrepancy between difficulty playing through and the boss fights, which I feel were kind of added in to just have them. I wish they would have been done a different way, whether it be kind of how Guitar Hero 3 did. We were actually battling them on the track and sending enemies on their path. I feel like that would work out really well here, especially with the enemies already present and being able to be used. I think that could have been done with a little touch up here and there. Answer, which I wasn't even expecting, as I'm not normally a PC gamer, but is Steam Workshop integration. There is, as of writing, 350 some songs available to download for free that people have created. Everything from other video game theme songs to meme stuff. Megalovania's there. Just a huge list that I was surprised to see, and I'm happy that there's already a community built around creating these. The only downside to that is if you are sort of a newer player or can't really hang out with the higher difficulty, Some of the songs are only made for impossible track difficulties or hard track difficulties. There's not an easy version available, so some of that stuff will be cut off to you, but there's plenty here to keep downloading. I'm sure the team will possibly have updates later on. I see they're teasing stuff already on Twitter as far as other characters. So I'm curious to see how this game branches out as the time progresses, as this year pans out, if they do other sort of themed partnerships with songs or have other collaborations with other indie games. We've seen that be a huge thing recently, especially with stuff like Balatro and Vampire Survivor. I think if you put Shovel Knight or Hyper Light Breaker in here with their character representation and put a song or two in, that would be a real cool idea to not only bring new fans in, but help keep Rift alive through an extremely busy year that we have coming up.
In the zone.
Impressive.
Outside of the Steam Workshop integration, though, the 33 songs included in Rift of the NecroDancer are all solid across the board. I don't think there's a single one I could point out that I didn't enjoy in some way, shape, or form, which surprised me as the soundtrack ranges from blues to metal to super fast electronic to sort of more mellow, chill out, like elevator lobby music type stuff. The variety that they're coming at you with songs and sound and speed, it all blends so well together. And I was able to find songs that I listen to on my off time now. They have the entire soundtrack available on Spotify. So if you are playing through this and a song or two catch your ear, you can go put those in your playlist. I obviously did on my end. Shout out to everyone who is contributing music to this from other indie game workers, their in-house music, whatever it be. It's a solid soundtrack all the way around. As of the time of doing this review, I'm roughly 7.5 hours in through Rift of the NecroDancer. That is including one full playthrough on medium. I've gone back and done a couple songs on hard, played around with daily challenges, looked at Steam Workshop stuff, downloaded a couple of those songs to check out, and I've really enjoyed my time. The 7 hours may not seem like a lot, obviously, but again, you need to look at this as an arcade experience. This isn't a game that you want to download, chug through the story, roll credits, and say you beat it, sort of thing. They want you coming back chasing high scores. They want you coming back chasing leaderboards, designing your own songs, checking out the community songs. This is a different experience, sort of, that I feel needs to be looked at in a different way compared to a traditional, hey, here's our release, here's the story we made, here's credits, possible DLC, move on. This is more at home with old school sort of settings. This is an arcade cabinet experience that they want you coming back to for the vibes, for the fun, for the colors and sounds, and it works for me. I was not expecting to enjoy this as much as I did, especially having a keyboard for this sort of thing. In my mind, I still want a physical guitar kind of in my house, in my on my couch. But I really enjoyed my time with this, and I am curious to see what happens throughout the year, as I said. But with that, as far as our review goes, as of now, I'm sitting about a 3.5, I feel, right now. We switched our review scale to out of 5 this year instead of 10, so 3.5 is where I'm landing at this. As mentioned, there's been a couple weird things, like the pacing, sort of the way they introduce elements and all the enemies to you, I feel could be reworked into a more player-friendly experience instead of sort of all at once, sink or swim sort of situation. But the game's solid. There's no major issues I came across. There's no gameplay glitches or songs dropping or nothing like that. It's a solid experience all the way around. You just need to approach it in the mindset of a music game and sort of know what you're getting into before you fully dive in.